He kissed her goodbye like he always did, gentle, trusting, unaware. She promised it was just a funeral, just a trip, just a few days away. But while he watered the garden and waited for her call, she buried more than an old teacher. She buried the life they'd built, one kiss at a time, with a man she once called her past. What she didn't know, her betrayal wasn't just discovered. It was documented. And the man she left behind wasn't going to scream. He was going to burn it all down, quietly, brilliantly, and with a vengeance she never saw coming. Before we begin, please like this video and subscribe Relation Tales. We're grateful for each and every one of you. Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. Tyler McCain lived for rhythm. Not music, not poetry, not the kind you could hear, but the rhythm of routine, the steady cadence of a life built brick by brick over 12 years of marriage with Lillian Carter McCain. He knew her every sound, the way her suitcase zipped on a Thursday, the little hum she made when she brushed her hair, the precise number of seconds her coffee brewed before she added 2 sugars and no cream. That rhythm gave him peace. It told him everything was okay, until it wasn't. The call came just after sunrise. Tyler was feeding their aging golden retriever, Cooper, when Lillian stepped into the kitchen, phone pressed to her ear, eyes suddenly glassy. She didn't even meet his gaze when she hung up. "That was my sister," she murmured. "Mrs. Kinley passed away." Mrs. Kinley, their old high school literature teacher, the woman who'd handed out second chances like bookmarks, who made Lillian fall in love with stories, who gave Tyler the confidence to write his first poem. She was more than a teacher. She was the reason they'd met. "I have to go to Marigold Ridge," Lillian said, calm and final. "For the funeral." Tyler nodded, swallowing the unease forming in his chest. "Of course. Do you want me to come?" She shook her head. "No. You've got work. And the dog. I won't be long." It was said kindly, softly, but something about it didn't feel right. The next morning, her sister Samantha pulled up with the same rush of urgency she always had. Lillian's suitcase was packed, her hair tied back in that low braid she wore when she wanted to feel grounded. Tyler helped her with the bag, watched her double-check the bouquet of white lilies in the back seat. Before she stepped outside, he held her for a long time. "You've got cash? Charger? Meds for your back?" She smiled. "Yes, all of it. I'll text when we get there." And then she was gone. Tyler stood at the window, watching the car shrink into the horizon like a chapter ending on its own. He didn't know that 6 hours away, in a town etched with the scent of river water and wet wood, the woman he loved was about to rewrite everything they'd built together. At Willow Hollow Inn, Lillian felt 17 again. Not in the good way. In the unfinished, vulnerable, uncertain way. The pine-scented air of Marigold Ridge whispered memories of teenage regrets and unresolved goodbyes. Especially one goodbye, Jason Miles. The name made her wince, even as Samantha joked they'd probably see him at the wake. "I heard he moved back here after the divorce," Sam said, stirring her coffee like she was stirring trouble. "You two were always a bit poetic together." Lillian rolled her eyes, but something stirred. Jason had been her first everything. Her first kiss behind the bleachers. Her first heartbreak. Her first lesson in how memory doesn't always fade cleanly. And when she spotted him at the church the next day, standing near a table of photographs with his signature crooked grin and newly silvering hair, it was as if the years between them vanished in a blink. He walked toward her. "Lillian." His voice was older, deeper, but still familiar. "Didn't expect to see you here." "I could say the same," she replied, trying not to sound breathless. He hugged her. Brief, gentle, but it lingered. They talked for hours that day. About Miss Kinley. About life. About nothing. Her laugh was louder than it should have been. Her pulse quicker than she wanted to admit. And when he found her on social media that night, messaging her with, "Still surreal seeing you. Want grab coffee tomorrow?" She told herself it was innocent, but she knew it wasn't. The next morning, while Samantha picked up flowers for the grave, Lillian slipped into a warm sweater and mascara. She stared at herself in the mirror for too long. And when she met Jason at Riverbend Cafe, she stepped across a line she didn't plan to return from. They talked. They walked. They kissed on a bridge where the wind carried old memories like confessions. Then they disappeared into the back room of his studio, quiet, urgent, sealed off from the world. She missed the burial by 10 minutes. That night, Lying beside her sister with her heart still racing and guilt churning beneath her skin, Lillian stared at the ceiling fan spinning above her. Every second felt like a crime. And back home, Tyler was watering her roses, checking his phone for a message that never came. What neither of them knew, what no one knew, was that someone else had been watching, and someone had already taken the pictures. The first sign came quietly. When Lillian returned home, Tyler met her at the door with a gentle hug. Cooper barked with joy, tail thumping against the wall, but Tyler's eyes lingered just a beat too long. His nose caught something strange, perfume. Not the floral scent she wore every day. No, this was muskier, bolder. Something that didn't belong in the life they shared. Something from the past. Long trip, he asked. Lillian nodded, her voice too even. Long, tiring. She left her suitcase untouched in the corner of their bedroom, saying she'd unpack later. Tyler didn't push. He never pushed. But when she went to bed early, he stayed up, staring at the slow swing of the back porch light, his heart already bracing for a storm he hadn't yet seen. By Monday evening, the storm arrived. She stepped into the kitchen and froze. Tyler sat at the table, two neat stacks of paper in front of him. Cooper lay by his feet, as still as a statue. Lillian's heart stuttered. She could feel the shift in the air, like a pressure drop before lightning strikes. What's all this? Without speaking, Tyler slid an envelope across the table. Inside, divorce papers. Signed, and tucked between the documents were photographs. Lillian's hand trembled as she pulled each one free. Her and Jason, laughing on the bridge. Her hand resting on his chest, lips nearly touching. One of them disappearing into a side entrance of the photo studio. And then another, later, of them emerging after dusk, her hair messy, her blouse rumpled, her fingers tangled with his. The room swayed. Tyler, she choked. I can explain. You don't need to, he said softly. The photos already did. It was a mistake, she stammered. A moment. It meant nothing. I still love you. But you didn't choose me, he replied, voice low, almost tired. You chose not to tell me. You chose to cross the line. That's what matters. Her eyes burned. Please don't do this. We've built so much, which you just tore down in one weekend. She reached for his hand, but he flinched, like her touch was a flame. The worst part wasn't his anger. It was his sadness. He looked hollow, not furious, just done. How did you even get these? She whispered. Tyler paused. His gaze didn't waver. Anonymous email. No name. Just photos. Time-stamped. Untraceable. Lillian's heart thundered. The thought that someone else knew, watched, documented, was almost worse than the betrayal itself. I didn't plan it, she said, barely audible. That's the problem, he replied. You didn't plan not to. That night, Lillian didn't sleep. She wandered the hallway with the envelope clutched to her chest, staring at the woman frozen in those images. The version of herself that had smiled into Jason's arms, thinking she could compartmentalize a betrayal without consequences. She saw her reflection in the window, pale, lost, smaller somehow. The next morning, she packed a bag and left. There was no dramatic goodbye, no slammed doors, just quiet retreat. She moved into a friend's guest room, tried to explain with half-truths, buried herself in work, and waited for a message from Tyler that never came. Meanwhile, Tyler sold a house. He moved into a downtown loft, simple, clean, anonymous. He didn't tell friends. He didn't answer her calls. The dog adjusted faster than he did. At night, Tyler would sit in the living room, fingers brushing over the photos not out of hate, but out of study. Try to figure out when it had started, how he hadn't seen it coming, whether she had meant to hurt him, or just hadn't cared if she did. One afternoon, his phone buzzed with a message from Samantha. Just checking in. You okay? He didn't answer at first, but days later, when she offered coffee near the university, he agreed. She showed up in scrubs, her hair pulled into a hasty bun, exhaustion clinging to her smile. They talked about everything, except Lillian. It became a pattern. Weekly check-ins, friendly dinners, shared dog walks. Tyler told himself it was innocent, but the silence between them had a pulse. One chilly Saturday, after an early morning vet appointment, Samantha invited him over for tea. The place smelled like cinnamon and quiet. Tyler didn't mean to stay long, but the conversation drifted toward old memories, camping trips with Lillian and Samantha as teens, how laughter used to be effortless, how grief could be a strange glue. And then Samantha said it. I always envied how steady you were. You made Lillian feel like the world wouldn't fall apart. Tyler looked up sharply. That's not what she wanted, in the end. Samantha hesitated. Maybe she didn't know what she wanted. Their eyes lingered too long. And then, without words, they both leaned in. It wasn't passionate. It wasn't wild. It was quiet, desperate, human. That night, Tyler lay in her bed, unable to sleep. Guilt gnawed at his ribs. Was this revenge? Or survival? He wasn't sure. But when he woke up the next morning, Samantha had already made coffee. Stay, she whispered. He did. Weeks passed. Their secret stretched itself in a habit. Sunday mornings. Grocery runs. Walks with Cooper. They didn't call it love. They didn't call it anything. And then one morning, a whisper on the wind of their small town carried a storm back to Phoenix. A friend of Lillian's sent her a message. Saw your ex and your sister at Oak Ridge Market. Looked cozy. She clicked the photo. Tyler and Samantha. Hand in hand. A grocery car between them. Smiling. Lillian's stomach dropped. The same betrayal she'd inflicted, now mirrored. Only this time, she wasn't the one holding the camera. Lillian didn't think. She booked the flight the same hour she saw the photo. No hesitation, no plan, just raw instinct. Betrayal had a way of setting fire to logic. It wasn't about jealousy. It wasn't even about Tyler. It was about the one person she had always trusted. Samantha, her sister. By the time she landed in Green Hollow, humidity wrapped around her like a punishment. The summer air was thick, but not thicker than the emotions boiling beneath her skin. She barely remembered the drive, only that she stood outside Samantha's apartment, heart pounding like it was trying to escape her chest. She knocked once, then again louder. Samantha opened the door wearing an old t-shirt and loose hair. She looked sleepy, unprepared, but it wasn't tiredness in her eyes. It was guilt. Lillian didn't wait to be invited. She stepped inside. The apartment smelled like cinnamon and lavender. Still warm. Still too familiar. Lillian's fists clenched involuntarily. How long? She demanded. Samantha shut the door slowly. Lillian. How long? Samantha's voice faltered. A couple months, maybe more. Lillian laughed. Bitter. Broken. Right after the funeral, wasn't it? Samantha didn't answer. That was answer enough. So, while I was falling apart, Lillian said, pacing now, you were playing savior. Samantha reached for her arm, but Lillian pulled away. Don't touch me. I didn't plan for this to happen, Samantha whispered. No, Lillian snapped. You waited, just like you always did. Watching, waiting, like a shadow. Samantha's face crumbled. That's not fair. No, Lillian said, quieter now. What's not fair is that you knew what I was going through. You saw everything, and you still thought, what? That you could step into my life like it was a role you deserved more. They stood there, hearts racing in opposite directions. I didn't chase him, Samantha said. I didn't seduce him. We were two people who were broken, and maybe we helped each other feel human again. Lillian swallowed hard, the burn in her throat almost unbearable. You helped yourself to my husband. There was silence, long, heavy, unforgiving. Then Lillian's voice softened into something more painful than shouting. The part that hurts the most isn't Tyler. It's you. I always thought we'd protect each other. That no matter what men came and went, we were solid. Samantha's eyes welled with tears. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did. Lillian turned to leave. At the door, she paused. You ever wonder who sent those photos to Tyler? Samantha didn't speak. Lillian's stare lingered. Yeah, I thought so. She left, door clicking shut behind her like the end of a chapter. That night, Samantha couldn't sleep. She lay beside Tyler, but her body felt stiff, foreign. He sensed it, turned toward her in the dark. You okay? No, she whispered. What is it? She sat up slowly. I need to tell you something. Tyler's heart dropped. He already knew it wasn't good. Samantha told him everything. About the photos. About the moment she saw Lillian and Jason together. About the way she followed them, camera tucked beneath her coat, hands shaking as she snapped frame after frame. I didn't mean to, she started, but Tyler's expression stopped her. He sat still, processing. You're the one who sent them? He asked. I didn't know what else to do. I thought you deserved the truth. He nodded slowly. You were right. She reached for his hand. I never thought it would turn into this. Tyler pulled away, gently but firmly. Neither did I. He rose, grabbed his keys, and left. Tyler didn't go far. He drove aimlessly for an hour, windows down, letting the wind claw at his thoughts. The streets of Green Hollow blurred past like memories he wasn't ready to face. Everything felt smaller now. His apartment, his choices, his trust. She'd sent the photos. Not a stranger. Not an anonymous whistleblower. Samantha, the woman who had held his hand while he healed from betrayal, had engineered the reveal that broke him in the first place. He parked at the overlook above Hollow Lake and just sat. For a long time, his mind kept circling the same question. Did she do it to protect him? Or to hurt her sister? The truth, he realized, probably lived somewhere between those two things. And that made it worse. By morning, Tyler returned to Samantha's place only to pack his things. No yelling. No slamming doors. Just silence. She stood at the window, arms wrapped around herself, tears slipping down her cheeks, and didn't ask him to stay. I need time, he said quietly. I need to know what any of this meant, and if it was real, or just payback in disguise. She nodded, her face pale and lost. Meanwhile, in Phoenix, Lillian sat on the floor of her apartment, the envelope of photos now crumpled, nearly shredded. She hadn't meant to keep them, but she couldn't seem to let them go. They weren't just evidence. They were reminders. Of the moment everything cracked. Of who she'd become. The guilt had been unbearable at first, but now it had hardened into something sharper. Not blame, not regret, but a resolve. She applied for a position at a small community college near downtown. Within a month, she was hired to teach creative writing. She stopped checking Tyler's social media, stopped replaying the bridge kiss. She adopted a cat, started running, bought herself a used car with her own name on the title. She was rebuilding, not to erase what she did, but to survive it. Some wounds didn't need closure. They needed distance. Samantha moved back into her childhood home in Green Hollow. Their mother had grown frail, the paint chipped on every windowsill, the heater stubborn in winter. But the house was quiet, safe, and it gave Samantha space to think. At night, she pored through old diaries, entries about feeling second best, about watching Lillian shine in every room, about a time in high school when she'd caught Tyler looking at Lillian with a kind of wonder she knew she'd never earn. The truth was cruel. She hadn't meant to fall in love with him. But when Lillian shattered what they had, a door opened, and Samantha walked through it. But now that door had slammed behind her. She reached out once, texted Tyler simply, "I'm sorry. For everything." He didn't reply. Tyler's loft became a sanctuary. He kept it minimal. No clutter. No shared furniture. He picked up pottery. Something about shaping clay felt symbolic. He didn't talk much to neighbors, but he grew familiar with the barista downstairs who never asked questions. Each Sunday, he took Cooper for long walks by the canal. One Wednesday, an envelope arrived in his mailbox. No return address. Inside, a single photograph. Not of Jason, not of Lillian. It was Cooper, running on the beach, tongue out, ears flapping. The photo was old. He could tell by the slightly warmer hue, the background sun low in the sky. Lillian had taken it, probably years ago, a moment captured and forgotten. Until now. He didn't cry, didn't smile either. He just stared at the image, then tucked it inside the back of a book on his shelf, between two chapters, not at the end. Months passed. One day, while attending a farewell party for a retiring professor, Tyler ran into Samantha again. She looked different, not older, just quieter. Her smile was cautious. "Hi," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "Hi," he replied. They talked for 5 minutes. Weather, work, her mom, pottery. When she reached out for a brief hug, he didn't hesitate, but he didn't linger either. As she walked away, Tyler realized something important. He didn't hate her. He didn't love her. And that might be the most honest feeling he'd had in a long time. Winter came slowly that year. Green Hollow turned gray, then silver. Dusty wind danced through empty porches, and Tyler's breath came out in clouds each time he stepped onto his small balcony. He had gotten used to silence now. Not the lonely kind, but the kind that no longer echoed with old arguments or unspoken questions. Some nights, he still thought of Lillian. Not with anger, but with a strange, almost clinical curiosity. He wondered if she'd found peace in Phoenix. Whether she had anyone now. Whether the weight of what she did still pressed on her ribs the way it used to on his. He didn't miss her. Not really. What he missed was who he used to be when he believed in permanence. Lillian, on the other hand, had stopped trying to measure her days in guilt. Teaching gave her structure. Her students, most of whom were older than she'd expected, reminded her that mistakes weren't measured by their scandal, but by what we do afterward. She stopped waiting for closure. Sometimes she jogged at sunrise through the dusty desert trails outside Phoenix, whispering half-finished poems to herself. Not to publish. Not for fame. Just because words helped her breathe. One day, she ran past a small bookstore with a hand-painted sign. Used. Loved. Worth another chapter. She stopped, walked in, and left with a blank journal. The next morning, she wrote the first honest sentence she'd written in years. I did a terrible thing, but I'm still here. Samantha rarely left Green Hollow. She found routine in taking care of their mother, repainting old walls, baking out habit. She didn't reach out to Lillian again. She knew some things don't heal with words. But she often walked to the edge of town, where the pine trees grew tall and the lake shimmered with sky, and she whispered apologies into the wind, not expecting them to be heard, but needing to say them anyway. One day, she started volunteering at a women's center. She found peace not in being forgiven, but in being useful. Tyler stayed away from serious relationships for a while. He wasn't bitter, just careful. He read more, took up photography, let Cooper sleep in the bed again. Some evenings he sat by the fireplace with a cup of black coffee and watched the sky turn from orange to blue to ink. One night, after cleaning out old files, he came across the photograph again, the one Lillian had sent. He studied it for a moment, then did something simple. He framed it, placed it on a shelf beside a potted plant and a ceramic bowl he'd made himself. Not to remember her, but to remember the man he was, loving, trusting, loyal. A man who had been broken, yes, but not destroyed. The following spring, a mutual friend invited both Tyler and Lillian to the same wedding. They hadn't seen each other in over a year. Tyler wore a navy blue suit. Lillian arrived in a pale green dress that whispered through the grass as she walked. They saw each other across the reception. Froze. Then slowly, carefully, they approached. Neither of them smiled right away. They didn't hug. Hi, she said. Hey, he replied. There was a beat of silence. I heard about the pottery, she said. I heard about your teaching. They didn't apologize. They didn't rehash. They just talked. About books. About how Cooper still hated baths. About how strange life was. How you can't undo what's been done, but you can stop carrying it like a punishment. When it was time to leave, they exchanged a quiet nod. Not a promise. Not a reunion. Just peace. Months later, Tyler stood on his balcony again, the air sweet with summer. He lit a small candle on the table beside him, just like he used to. Cooper nudged his leg for attention. Tyler smiled, rubbed the dog's ears, and sat back, letting the quiet wrap around him, not as a weight, but as a comfort. And as the wind stirred the leaves below, he understood something that would stay with him for the rest of his life. Some betrayals break you, others remake you, and sometimes you need both to become the version of yourself who finally stops waiting to be loved and simply chooses to live.